Hey, gang. Sean from The Good Dog on an amazingly awesome day here in NOLA. It's got some super tropical vibes going on, a little humid, a little wind, I don't know, low 80s as your weatherman here in NOLA. Winds out of the southwest, and anyway. So I want to talk to you guys about loading, right? So the way dogs load, regardless, I was going to say just on walks, but it really could be anywhere. So if it's okay, let's put it this way: anything that gets your dog agitated, aggravated, excited, explosive in a bad space, right, is what we're going to call loading, right? Anything that juices them up and puts them in a bad space that you probably don't enjoy. Typically this happens on the walk, but it also can happen inside when you have guests over, or kids skateboarding by your front yard, or it could be a million different things. Or it could even be a squirrel in the tree, or a cat, anything like that. What I want you to think about is that primarily dogs load visually. Primarily the way they get their emotional kind of like oomph going is, looking at sniper dogs, is visually. Now, do they get some through scent, and do they get some through auditory stuff? Of course. But there's something extra special about the visual. It's, as somebody who's done a ton of work with reactive dogs, it's just something that becomes pretty obvious pretty quickly. I'm gonna just walk this way. Try not to scare this guy over here. So if you work with reactive dogs a lot, you're gonna notice that it's the eye contact that allows them to load, right? So the name of this video is, they can't load if they can't look, right? And could they load a little bit if they hear the jingling of another dog's chain? Of course. Could they smell another dog and load a bit, or smell something that triggers them? Of course. But I'm telling you guys that that stuff doesn't come anywhere near the kind of loading power that the visual does. Eye contact is just about everything. I'd say it's about, even though dogs are so scent oriented, when it comes to the actual response to a trigger, it's the visual all the way. I'd say like 90%, maybe more. Any of you scientific folks out there, don't give me any hard time with numbers, all right? Just a dude doing his job, telling it like it is. So that's my best guess, right? We're gonna say like a 90%. Anyways, the trick is, and what we found, and what goes against what so many people teach, and what so many people have been taught, yeah, dogs, snotties, we call those little snotties. What so many people have been taught is that if you correct a dog when it looks or at something, or is aroused by something, or triggered by something, you'll create a negative association, right? We've all heard it a million freaking times. And you've probably heard me a million freaking times saying that, go ahead and correct it, because the negative association is already there. That's why you're getting the reaction, right? The reaction is not coming because you're correcting the dog. The reaction is coming because the dog has a feeling about whatever the trigger is. So let's get that off the table straight away, right? So let's get rid of that whole, you don't want to correct for growling, you don't want to correct for staring, you don't want to, all this monkey business mumbo jumbo that people have been feeding other, trainers and other BS artists, people that actually don't do the work, have been feeding people that if you correct this stuff, you're going to create a negative association and things are only going to get worse. S, right? I don't know if I can curse on Facebook. So anyways, with that out of the way, because I just had somebody ask me again about growling, because they've been reading, about that if you correct the growl, then you'll just get the bite. It's always that same fear message. Correct the growl and you get the bite. No, let's correct the growl. Let's correct every piece of the escalation cycle to where we don't get the escalation. Why don't we do that? Why don't we say the growl is an emanation of a negative state, and let's cut that off at the pass so we don't have the negative state, and so the dog can have the opportunity to explore a different feeling about whatever the trigger is. Cool? Okay, so that out of the way, off my high horse. The visual is such a huge piece of it, guys. So let's just focus on the walk, because the walk is where so many people struggle. Like I said, it can happen in a lot of different contexts, but the walk is where so many people and so many dogs have a hard time with reactivity stuff. And if you'll just think very simply about the eye contact being the loading mechanism for things to go haywire, then you'll really be in a space to start correcting that behavior, that habit, that negative cycle, and start giving your dog the opportunity to replace it with a new behavior, a new cycle, one of non-reactivity, one of I'm not allowed to do that, one of that stuff used to bother me, but I've been corrected and not allowed to look at it, so I haven't been allowed to feed or like fill the well of emotional like negativity over and over again, so now the well's running dry. That makes sense? So as long as the dog keeps getting to look at whatever the triggers are and loading over days and days and days, it just keeps filling the well and keeps the dog primed. Wow, we've got all this well and pump like analogy stuff going on. So you keeps the dog primed for negative stuff. Lots of people down there. Let's go this way. Come on, bud. So the trick is, if you want the negative well to run dry, which is reactivity and bad, crappy stuff that makes your life hell and your dog very uncomfortable, then let's cut off what fills the well, which is the visual, right? So like I said, the other things can create little bits of stuff, but they don't come anywhere near the visual. So let's get to the meat of this. If you're out on your dog, if you're out on a walk with your dog, not on your dog, hopefully, unless he's really big and you're riding him. If you're out on a walk with your dog and your dog has got reactivity issues, whether it's cats, whether it's kids, whether it's dogs, whether it's people, whether it's cars, whatever it is, the longer you allow your dog to look, stare, and load, you guys all know what it looks like. Any of you with reactive dogs, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Sorry, we're getting some big wind. You know exactly what I'm talking about. You know exactly what it looks like. I was just watching the Desmond video today. Des was like, I don't know, 3, 4, 5 years ago, something. German Shepherd was reactive to everything. Everything I just listed, he was reactive to. People in the house, dogs, cats, bikes, kids, the whole deal. And what did we do? Of course, we did our foundational program, all the regular stuff. But most importantly, we said, you can't do that. You can't look and load. We won't allow you, right? We corrected or punished that behavior, which meant that that behavior then diminished and diminished and diminished. And we never got that ticking time bomb. We never got that no growling, no barking, no warning, and now he's just a rabid beast that's unpredictable and ready to explode. The ticking time bomb, if you will. So I was just watching that video this morning and just seeing how simple the whole process is. Just watching a dog learn, okay, I'm not allowed to do that, okay, so I won't do that because I've been corrected for staring. And then slowly the dog starts to develop new emotional habit patterns regarding whatever that trigger is. I call that natural counter conditioning. I make up all my own terminology, right? So it's trademarked, so don't try and steal it. Anyways, that's really the trick, guys. If you'll keep it super simple, this video is actually cool because it's covering a lot of ground, but it's getting back to the real meat of it, which is that they need to look to load. And if you can really understand that, how simple that is, that dogs need to stare at whatever it is in order to feed that emotional well, in order to load and then explode, man, you've got the answers right there. Right? So that's the counter to people saying, well, you don't correct for doing. Yes, of course you correct. And you correct the split second that it happens. You don't correct when your dog's loaded for 3 seconds and now he's tense and now he's got adrenaline coursing through his body. No, that's the bad time to correct. That's when you're gonna have to correct really hard and you may not even have any positive reaction at all. The trick is the split second that your dog, who's reactive, and you know he's reactive, and you know the trigger's there, and he glances over, you correct. If you've got a prong collar, you give him a pop on the prong collar and you make sure it's super early in the escalation process or sequence, and firm enough that he cares enough to not look back. And if he does look back, correct again, a little firmer. Same thing goes for e-collar. You got to correct early and firm enough to where it's got value for the dog, to where the dog will prioritize looking away from the trigger rather than going back to the emotional well. Does that make sense? I hope so, because it's actually like crazily simple. And I think so many people make dog training incredibly complicated, and it's just not. Yes, there's nuance, and yes, there's art form, and like I said the other day, reading the dog is the biggest art form. But these kind of concepts that most people are struggling with as far as reactivity stuff, there's so much information that's counter, that's telling you the wrong thing, that's telling you to, like, you know, reinforce it with food when he looks so he creates a positive freaking association. Are you crazy? Are you out of your minds? No way. If you want a dog to stop being reactive, tell him not to be reactive by correcting him, right? Don't give him something that rewards and reinforces it. That's positive reinforcement. That makes it happen more often. Correct or punish it so it happens less often. Give your dog the opportunity to move into a different emotional state rather than staying stuck, relegated to this reactivity space where they can't get out of. This guy, that's who this guy was 2 days ago. What have I done? Hardly anything. Simple walks, prong collar and e-collar, got him to heel, got him to listen to thresholds, made sure that he was listening and respectful, and then I started correcting him if he looked at a dog in in any kind of loading fashion. If it was a mild glance and it was just like startle, that's a different thing. But if he was like looking at a dog, especially if it was a barky dog, no way. I corrected it, and what's he learned? Oh, I'm not supposed to do that. And now what's he learning beyond I'm not supposed to do that? It doesn't really bother me. I actually feel more comfortable just walking with you than I do blowing up and exploding. So that's really what I wanted to get across in this video. I don't want it to be too long, guys. You know, I tend to do the 12 to 15 minute thing like pretty regularly. This is so important, guys. So important that you understand that your dog has to look to load, right? If he can't look, he can't load. Whether it's guests in your house and he's sitting on place and he's staring at your guests, that's loading. That's eventually going to turn into something dangerous. Don't allow that. Don't allow staring in a tense fashion at human beings in your house. That's loading. Loading leads to something else, right? Loading is the fuse being lit. Loading is how your dog emotionally moves from one point to a negative point, right? And if it's staring at the cat, the same thing's happening. If it's staring at a squirrel, the same thing's happening. If it's staring at a bike going down the street on the walk, same thing's happening. If it's staring at a car, you get it? It's all the same stuff. So anyways, I hope that clarifies. Your job is to not allow the loading process, right? Depending on what tools you're using, that's up to you. You know, we use prong and e-collar because we find it works the best for us and our reactive dogs. So don't let them look, don't let them load. Give them the opportunity to become more relaxed, comfortable, happy dogs by way of you blocking that reaction, not allowing them to fill the emotional well, drain that well, and then replace it with something better, which is a comfortable, relaxed, awesome dog. All right? Don't let them look, don't let them load. Charm the good dog in NOLA. Beautiful day. See you guys.